team to be a part of their support team. And so I would invite them to come now. They're going to give us an update about ministry in Malawi and what they've been up to, how God's been using them to share the good news of Jesus Christ. So welcome, Dave and Margie. We're so delighted that you're here. You're welcome to stand wherever you'd like.
Oh, thanks. Wow, this is really special. I guess we've known so many of you guys for so long. This is just really special to be here. Glenn said we have about 15 minutes or so to talk. And
I'm going to stand this way so I can.
Oh, that's a good idea. But this is just really special to be here. Glenn said we could talk for about 10 or 15 minutes, and I promise to be done in 50 minutes or so. Yes. It really was kind of neat with that last song, just singing about the new story and how it's the old story. And so in some ways we feel like we're telling this new story, yet hopefully what we're doing is telling that old story of Christ and communicating that well. But we've been in Malawi now for about 3 years, and in some ways it seems like that's been a week, and in some ways it seems like we've been there for a long, long time. And so it really has been good to be there. I guess let's see. How do we change I guess we can just nod, or we'll be nodding a lot, or stomping our foot or something. But as we've said to so many people, it really is. It's just wonderful to be home, and Malawi is now home in so many ways. But this is home when we're with the people who we love, and frankly, the people of the Lord. It's just so nice to be home and worship with you guys. Well, we're here. We're at the end of our first 3-year term in Malawi, and so that's why we now have kind of a long stay here. We're here for about 4 months, and a lot of that's going to be traveling around, seeing our kids, and getting to see folks who are supporting us and visiting churches, and it's really been great. But most of you guys, we're there with a group called SIM, which is one of the mainstream mission organizations. It used to be Sudan Interior Missions, and it's now just SIM, Serving in Mission. They're all over the world, and it's really been wonderful being with SIM. And then I actually work with a group called Cure International, which is a group of hospitals. You can go to the next slide, I think. Oh, yeah, for you guys who don't know where Malawi is, we did not know where Malawi was when we first heard about it. We sort of joke, we prayed that the Lord would send us to Maui, and He sent us to Malawi. But it's basically it's it's a wonderful hospital. It's in southern Africa. One of the nice things about Malawi is that it's very safe. There are no insurgent groups there. There's robbery and that sort of thing, and Margie will chat about that. But it's really a very safe country to be in. This is the hospital. It's really a very nice hospital. It was built now about 12, 13 years ago, and it was built very much to try to be on a Western standard. But what do we do there? Basically, I work as medical director and as an orthopedic surgeon. We do actually a lot of the same procedures there that we did here. And so it's nice. We're doing total hips and total knees. But probably the biggest thing that we're doing is that we operate on a lot of children in addition. And that's probably the real focus of the hospital, is to operate on children with deformities and disabilities. And to try to keep that sustainable, we do a lot of adult surgery, and we charge for the adults. So it's been really good. Can you go to the next one? And this is actually a picture of where Cure is active. There are 10 Cure hospitals around Africa, and yet Cure is involved in a lot of other ministries in a lot of other countries. So there's 6 hospitals in Africa, 3 in Asia, and then there's 1 in the Dominican Republic. So I do that. Margie works primarily in administration, doing basically, as somebody said, she basically does what needs to be done. And so if anything administrative needs to be done or taught, she does it. And what I love about what she does is that she typically does it, has a Malawian there that's learning how to do it, and then we hand it over to them as quickly as we can. And that seems to work well. Strange to think that we lived here. Can you do another one? those of you, a lot of you guys knew us, and these are our kids. We lived here for 22 years. Our kids grew up here. They're now married. The two things that are missing from that now are our two grandchildren that we've just had in the last 6 months. So life is really good. But we believe that we think it's the God that does the calling, and God does the sending, and God does the equipping, and He does all that work. We do very little. I guess the key for us is to try to be obedient to that, but it's God who does all that work. And in Genesis, it talks about in Genesis 12, 1 through 3, the Lord had said to Abram, "Go from your country, your people, and your father's household to the land I will show you. I will make you into a great nation, and I will bless you. I will make your name great, and you will be a blessing." He does the work, yet somehow we're the blessing. "I will bless those who bless you, and whoever curses you I will curse, and all peoples on earth will be blessed through you." So we really are so grateful that it's God who does all that work. He's the one who calls everybody. He's the one who does it all.
So we believe every Christian should be involved in God's kingdom work. So how did we get kind of moved from Waynesboro, where we were very comfortable, we loved our life here, to Malawi? At that time, Africa was nowhere on our map. Someone said, "Oh, you're going to Africa." I said, "No, we are not going to Africa." And so somehow God worked that out. But it was a process of just walking through the open doors and meeting with our pastor, going to missions conferences. We didn't know when God began to nudge us if that was going to be a long-term commitment or multiple short-term commitments. We just really weren't sure. And God made that very, very clear. Many of you know I was raised on the mission field, and so that was a very natural kind of fit for me. But Dave was not. Dave became a Christian as an adult, and so when he had been a Christian, finished orthopedic training, we really investigated missions at that point and felt a pretty firm no, and that was quite a surprise. There are lots of reasons for that. Orthopedics is pretty equipment intensive, and mission organizations weren't putting specialist doctors in at that time. But I would say it was probably more of a surprise when 5 years ago, after being here for so long, we felt God nudging us to move in a different direction. And Dave resigned his practice, and our partners were kind of like, "Well, where are you going?" We're like, "We don't know." "What are you going to do?" "We don't know." But we knew God was calling us, and we knew we had to get ready. And we wanted to be, it's just been a great place to live, and we wanted to be fair to them. It takes on average 2 years to replace a doctor, so we wanted to give them plenty of time to replace and to leave this place well. So as he said, I think you can keep going. We live in a city, so many things about our life are much the same as here. We have grocery stores and ATMs, but the sights and smells, I guess I should say, of our life are very different. The river that runs just a few hundred meters from our house is full of open sewage, and we don't think anymore about seeing goats tied to the back of bicycles or chickens hanging from bicycle handlebars. So our life is much the same, but it's very different. We drive cars to work, but gas for us is over $8 a gallon, so we don't drive too much if we don't have to. So many things about our life are different. Through the clinic network, we see about 8,000 kids a year and operate on about 1,500, and almost all of those kids would not have access to care if Cure were not there.
You changed that again. Oh, good. I think one of especially if you go on the Cure website, and I basically live both of us basically live at Cure, but then we also, the SIM group is really who supports us and who builds us up. But through Cure, you see lists of kids. You think about 1,600 kids, 8,000 kids. You tend to start thinking, if you're not careful about this is a list. This is numbers. But each one of those kids is a story, and I think each one of those kids is a story of hope. And I think the great thing is that so many of the miracles of Christ are healing miracles, and I think as often here I've just got some pictures of the kids, and you see these kids come into the hospital with incredibly sad stories. Kids with deformities here they still try to get out in the community, and they're seen as fairly normal, except their legs are crooked or they have a problem. There, they've been cursed. Their ancestors have cursed them. And so for whatever reason they feel cursed, they're hidden away. And so often they're not even part of society. And so when their deformities are treated and they're able to walk and they're able to get around, they become more normal. They become in the eyes of the community. And so in their eyes, that curse has been lifted. And as you heal, and as these kids are healed, there's this new openness to spiritual healing in addition. And so the ability to worship, to minister to them, and then particular to their guardians, because every child that comes in has to have a guardian. And so that's where we so often see that healing, is we see these families whose children they've had to hide their children away, and now all of a sudden they can let their kids know about the community. And so this spiritual openness and the people who come to Christ is just dramatic. You go through a few. So these are just a few. One of the other places that we're hoping we make a big difference is in training. We train a lot of medical students. We're right next door to the College of Medicine. So we're treating a lot of medical students. We're treating a lot of orthopedic residents, a lot of surgical residents. The orthopedic clinical officers are people who probably have similar training to people who work in the rescue squad. And some of these people are specialized in orthopedics, and they actually probably provide the bulk of the orthopedic care in the whole country, because they're the ones who are out in the communities and the district hospitals. And so we're really involved in training a lot in addition. You go to that, then go to, and it is, sometimes it's very frustrating. We make it sound like, oh, this is wonderful. And some days I've got to admit it, it's really good there's not a flight out of Malawi every day. Because sometimes it's very frustrating, because their style of, on the whole, the schools are very different and the styles of doing things are different. But it's incredibly rewarding. And what's really fun is when you see these kids, and you see the kids when they come in the hospital, and they're flat, and their affect is flat, and they're unhappy, and they're sad. And while they're in the hospital, you start to see these kids come out, and you see their personalities come out, and you see these smiles. And Malawi is a nation of children. The average age is 17. And so everywhere you go, there are children. And most of the kids are smiling and happy like this. So we see crowds of kids like this all the time. And I think part of it is they're used to being treated like nobody, and they come to Cure and they're treated and they're respected, and when they see that, their lives seem to be open to Christ. And so often we think their lives are changed forever, and hopefully that's because Cure is there and we're there working with them.
I think to put it in perspective, it would be the number of physicians serving in Malawi would be as though Waynesboro, Stanton, and Augusta County had 4 physicians total of any type, not orthopedics, total. So that, when we say 20% of the population has access to any health care at all, that's access to that EMT kind of level care at best. And training is really important, because when we went there were no orthopedic or surgical residents in training, none. And now we have 4 next year. It's slow. Change happens slowly. And when you realize that we have 16 million people in Malawi, a very small country, the average income is $1 a day, and subsistence farming is still the norm. I think I've got a couple pictures of just life in Malawi. I would say 85%, maybe 90% still cook over open fires. That's why we see so many burns. So it's a difficult life and a hard life. And yet the people are warm. They've taught us a lot. Relationship is way more important than time, way more important than money. If you walk into a room, you greet every person. And if you can't physically get there to greet them, you acknowledge them one by one around the room. And that's a stretch for us in our Western culture, where time is important and task is important. And those things are really not that important. We have lots of time and no money, so people are, and we've learned a lot from that.
I was just thinking, there's such a rough environment for so many. we actually live in a very nice house, and it's a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom house, and the strange thing is living behind a wall that was very strange when you're on the mission field. Here we are to minister to people, and yet we have to live behind a wall. So can you go to the next? I think there are a couple. This is just the rivers very close to us, about 200 meters away, where there's just kind of open sewage. So even though we live in a very nice house, things are very different. Can you go through a couple of those? And this is just the market that's close by. People are incredibly innovative. We actually laugh and say, if you own a bicycle, you have it made, because you have a business. And to see these guys trying to carry this, and this is probably after he has come down the mountain on that bike. So, can you go to the next one? Yeah, and again, as Margie was saying, relationship is really key. And so everywhere you go, people are doing things as a group, and it's a community. It's a community. Can you go to the next one then? Yeah, and one of the sources that talks about Christian missions is that Christian missions is obeying Christ, sharing Christ, and relying on Christ. Specifically, God sends missionaries through the support of the church to the unreached. All Christians, however, have the mission of reconciliation. The Lord works through them to rescue the lost. Can you go to the next one there too? And, the Great Commission, Matthew 28:19-20, is therefore go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit, and teaching them to obey everything I have commanded you. And surely I am with you always, to the very end of the age. The thing I love about this isn't optional. When you become a Christian, God's speaking to us here. This isn't something, this isn't something he's saying, I'm just calling you and maybe you. He's calling all of us. He's calling all of us, for this Great Commission. And it is great. We do catch glimpses of what a restored kingdom is going to be like. And, as we see him heal a sick child or enable one of these kids to walk, this isn't us that's doing this. This is God that's doing this. But what's great is we catch a glimpse of God working to redeem the world in all aspects, not just the physical healing. I guess the challenge that we would like to leave for you guys is examine, where is the Lord in your life? Where is the Lord calling you? And the mission field isn't there. The mission field is here. It's next door. You guys know this as a church, and we know so many of you who sacrifice so much every day. And so I guess just leave yourself open to how is God calling you at all times. And we don't feel like we're any different now than we were when we worked here for 22 years. We just feel like he's just changed our geography a little bit. But just examine what's the Lord calling you to do. And it's such an incredible privilege. So thanks.
Amen.